Hey, what's up? How's it? Aloha, it is me, Makani. Welcome to Culturized. Now, this is a space where we get to share and learn and talk and just learn culture, share, whether it's ethnic, whether it's social. I truly believe that there needs to be a space for us to learn culture. And, sometimes there's people out there that they want to learn something. They want to get to know somebody, another culture, and they don't really know where to go or don't really know what to do. Or sometimes we get that local boy syndrome, shame, or, getting old, no sense. But that's the space that we've created. So hopefully, you can tune in, you can watch, you can listen, and maybe learn something and maybe get in touch with a culture that you've always wanted to get in touch with. But because we are a cultured show, and yes, we are in Hawaii, we do it here in Hawaii the way we're supposed to with protocol. So before we introduce to you our guest, we like to actually welcome our guest into this space.
Onawe kahala o puna e kawahine o kalua no I kilauea.
Mahalo. Ova I koina.
Lona Tabora.
Leo nui.
Lona Tabora.
Mahalo lono ke ahui ho. Gotta say mahalo to the Kanaka Kid. When you're done watching this on YouTube, you can go check his out, Kanaka Kid on YouTube. So I want to introduce you guys right now. Let's get right into this. I'm loving season 5. I had to right off the top. We've been in a few seasons, and I thought to myself, I need motivation. I need to holamua. I need to move forward. Who am I going to call to motivate me? Because having a podcast and sharing culture, it's a dream. It's my thing to do. It's my kuleana. So, leadership speaker, executive coach, producer of Leader Seeds podcast, purpose-driven entrepreneur, certified John Maxwell speaker, coach, trainer, Native Hawaiian, dad, husband, of all those things, Po'okela Mossman, of all those things, brother, which one is at the top? Is it dad? Is it husband? Is it?
Yeah, I think in the seasons, right now, it's so rich to be true and kind of like I'd say a combination of dad, husband, and a circle around of who I am, of being true to your name.
Ooh, explain that to us. True to your name.
True to your name. So first name. So first name for myself, English name is Jordan.
Okay.
And for many years I went with Jordan. And recently, I think maybe a few years ago, I had one of my mentors ask me. He heard of all 4 of my names, and he asked, "Which one would you want to be called?" And I realized I was never asked that before. And right away I said Po'okela. Wow. So he asked why I never introduced myself as that, and the short answer is basically it's hard to get, it takes some time for people to remember, especially if I'm in a leadership space or in a business, atmosphere. It takes some time, and they mess it up. They call me Pukeni Kenny, a bunch of different, right? And I just they just call me Jordan. But he really encouraged me to say no, because he heard about the definition of the name and how it's given in Hawaiian culture.
Tell us, for those that don't know what Po'okela is, just not the meaning, the literal meaning of Po'okela means what?
So literally, if you do a Google search, I think the quickest thing that Google will tell you, because many people watching might just do a Google search, and it'll say chief. But in Hawaiian language, it means many different ways, because Hawaiian language is so open. It's so there's leader, there's excellence, there's foremost, there's supreme. It's that context of Po'okela. And for me personally, I just wanted to, when people associate with me, I want you to call out the excellence in me, and I want you to come with excellence. So it's that kind of that opening.
That is here's me thinking, okay, I'm going to talk to Po'okela about these things, and this is exactly organically how it happens. Now I don't feel too bad, because for the longest time, even growing up, I was like, Makani. And I'll be honest, I used to think to myself, Makani sound a little bit mahu. Right?
Oh, right.
But, and then they, like you said, they get the wrong name. They call me Makana. They call me whatever else. So it's easier, right? Even my grandfather always said, okay, when you go mainland or when you talk to other people, non-native, just tell them your name, Mike.
Right.
So that's only your first name. So, do you feel that you have to uphold every meaning of Po'okela?
Wow.
You personally?
Such
is,
a good.
is that a heavy?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I introduced myself as Jordan before, because I felt the pressure. I think as a young child kind of growing up, especially when you take your first big hits and you fail at something, you try it for a team and you don't make it, and you felt like it wasn't Po'okela, it wasn't excellence, and you're starting to feel like you're not right, you're not abiding your name, you're not good in your name, and it's like, ugh.
And see, that's, I think, like you said earlier, the beauty of Hawaiian names. So if you are joining us, this is Culturized, and we're kicking off season 5 because just already you see the motivation. He is reminding me we have to live up to your name, whether your name is native, whether it's not, whatever your name is. It came from somebody and there was a purpose for it. But we're going to get a little bit deeper into the culture of leadership with Po'okela Mossman right here, the chief, the leader. This guy is amazing. Stay close. It's Culturized.
Bringing you what matters. Viewers can receive the Star Advertiser Digital Full Access subscription for just $9.95 per month. Go to staradvertiser.com and click on subscribe. Use the code AHAITHING. For all your money needs, Hawaiian Financial Federal Credit Union is here for you. Visit hificu.com.
Hey, welcome back to Culturized, sitting with Po'okela Mossman. If you just joined us, we are talking names. And as we said, as Hawaiians, and I think any other native culture, when you give somebody a name, like you as dad, how many children?
4
kids. And was it, thinking of names, what was that like to name your kids?
It was so special to me. I wanted to seek out somebody that was above my knowledge. So I went to my kumu. And I didn't feel equipped in the moment, but it was special in the sense of when the keiki, they're still learning their name, and I still, as a dad, I want to remind them of their name. My son, before he plays sports, I'm like, remember Kona Piliahi, his name, and remember, right? And
what? all the kids' names.
So Pilahila Akea.
Dude, that, you see, you get a pause every time somebody says a keiki, you pause because you let that sink in. It's just for me, it's initially you think, okay, I know the literal meaning of it, but I know it's deeper. The kauna to that is, okay, who else is there?
So Pilahila Akea is the oldest, and then we have next is Kona Piliahi, son, and then we have Leo Hone, a sweet voice, and then we have Ka'ahanui, our youngest.
That like I want to and I don't want to go into the kauna. I'll leave it at that, because a lot of times, here's a lesson to it in culture. When it comes to Hawaiian names, we'll say what Po'okela means, but a lot of times the kauna is, you don't want to share that with too many people. It's almost as though, when we give our kids this long name, and then you just let me just shorten it, just because we don't want to give away that ano, that spirit of. So there's a one for you.
That's good.
I know we started backwards, but very, very local style, right? We met you, and were you in high school?
Castle High School.
Castle Knights.
Right, Castle Knights.
So you grew up where?
I grew up born and raised in Kahaluu.
Because okay, so speaking of names, I'm going to go back to it. Now, amazing first name, Po'okela. Mossman that carries,
right,
like,
right.
That's load. What's more intense for you? What's bigger kuleana, to carry the last name Mossman or the name Po'okela?
I think it was a mix where I noticed when I stepped into the entertainment industry, when I stepped into at the luau's, and when we kind of worked together, right? When I stepped into there, it was more natural that they call me Po'okela. But then realizing Mossman, that's where the weight would be a little bit more, right? When it's like, oh, that's all you do. That's because Mossman had so many different songwriting, musician,
that's what I
right?
mean.
So I was like, whew.
Did they expect you to? So that's, this is it's all, when I think about Po'okela Mossman, I just think to myself, like, you just got, by birth, your trajectory was right, and that's heavy. So with that and all this knowledge, what was it like growing up in Kahaluu? What was it like in the household? Was it very Hawaiian? Was it very local? What was the culture like at home growing up?
So the household. So I think I learned much more of my culture from grandma. From grandma. The household, I'd say, very local culture, and maybe different in Hawaiian culture wise.
So just you saying that with grandma, that's because there's not a lot of people had that opportunity to, because other cultures, they think, oh, these parents, they just throw their kids to their grandparents,
Right.
but to us, that's school,
Right.
What are things that you remember growing up like that, just customs and cultures? And
so my first hula, boy from Lapo Hoi Hoi, was with grandma. I think she taught me the hula in the middle of Young and the Restless. we was eating with boy sardines, and in the middle she was like, "Boy, stand up."
How old were you?
Oh, must have been in grade school, 6, 7 years old. And you did them because you just love grandma.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about the whole context of hula, and then next thing you know, family gathering. She's like, "Stand up and show everybody." And
I love that. So I don't even remember my first hula. So that's props to you. I don't. See, now I'm trying to think about it. No. Boy from Lapo Hoi Hoi. You're sitting watching Young and the Restless. And was it just out of the blue, or like she prepped, like, hey, one day you got a hula,
No, it was out of the blue because she would play ukulele in the band, she kupuna, and I really remember before, I don't know if now the schools, but they have a kupuna at every school.
Right. Kupuna program.
Yeah. So that was we learned so much of culture growing up with the keiki with that. But
I love it. I'm totally. We're gonna get into what you do as a profession today, but this is the part of culture that I love. Talking about being tutu. Hey, commercial break. Young and the Restless. Boy from Lapo Hoi. Come on. Let's do that. So if you're joining us, welcome to Culture Rise. We're talking with Po'okela Mossman, leadership speaker, executive. We're going to talk about his podcast, to talk about he can motivate, or how he's going to motivate me, because I need it right here on Culturized.
Ashley is America's #1 furniture store. We have everything you need for your home. Let the experts at King Windward help you out of your current loan or lease and into a new vehicle. Visit kingwindwardnissan.com.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to Culturized. My name is Makani. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in. If you're on YouTube, don't forget, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, all the things that people tell you to do that. If you're watching, thank you so much for watching us on network, on YouTube. If you're listening in, thank you very much as well. Mahalo for that. Sitting with Po'okela Mossman, Castle High School, Kahaluu, native Hawaiian. Grew up, luckily enough to grow up with grandparents and aunties and uncles. Your background is a huge entertainment family. So you already from birth have this kuleana you couldn't even step up because you were already up, right? You had to be there. How did you get into, because now you have your company and it holds your namesake, right? And leadership and motivational speaker. How did that all come about? What is the name? What do you call the company?
So we call it Po'okela Chief Development and Leadership Strategies.
Look at that. Po'okela Chief. I love the fact that you put chief in it. It's just such a great catch because of, you look at the mainland and you look at a lot of these motivational speakers, but I'm just a little bit biased because when it's a native and we're just tapping into what is already in here,
right?
People love that. Okay, continue. So Po'okela Chief Leadership.
Yeah, and Chief kind of came together in a sense because of that concept. I wanted to because that's part of who I am. It's the professional side of me, but it's the Polynesian side of me, right? So it's kind of just marrying both. But when I looked up Chief, what came to mind, which was surprising, was what matters most. Because you think chief in a kingdom sense, but you think chief executive officer, you think chief of staff, you think chief in HPD. It's your chief complaint. It's what matters most. It draws a priority to things, and that's my heart in the leadership and coaching. Is I feel like we've lost sense of what matters most.
So this is a question for me right off the bat. I like your episode on dream and keeping it alive, and I always tell myself, I used to say, I'm such a late bloomer because now at my age I'm doing the things I wanted to do. Is it ever too late to stop dreaming or start dreaming?
I would say no. So the direct answer is never too late to start or stop dreaming. I think there is a time when we realize that that there's been a dream that we're in. we might realize it in the fifth chapter or in the first chapter. But sometimes realizing it, for myself, I can relate, where I'm realizing it in a few chapters in. But as I reflect, I see how things set up for this chapter. So it's almost as a full circle. And it's almost, there's healing involved in there. There's inspiration involved in there. There's strength that I draw from.
I love it because I'm like that. I was, in college, I had a plan, right? I had a plan. I want to buy a house at this time, get married at this time, and do this at this time. And did any of that happen? No. Right? And I thought to myself, I said, is this I guess the next question, is this a dream or is it a goal or what? Right. What, or can you make your goal the dream and can you make the dream the goal? Right. Is that possible?
It's such a good question. And I think the best way I'd explain it is that the dream is always much bigger than you. It always makes you feel like you're not ready for it because you have to grow into it. The goal, you have what you need to achieve the goal. You just got to execute on it. A lot of times our goals is like, I want X and X and X, but I'm not doing X and X and X.
That is me. I'm terrible at executing because I think about these things, right? It's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and it's a great idea, and I never execute, and then like a month or 2 months, a year from now, I was like, I had that idea.
Right.
Keeping the dream. What would you tell somebody? I was gonna give it an age, but I don't want to give it an age. Who's easier to coach, to be a leader? Kids or adults? It might be a rhetorical question. I don't know. For you, what's easier?
It's such a good question. And I think what comes to mind is it's really having, I say it in my words, the heart of a child. Ooh. And it's because we can be any age. There's challenges when I work with youth. There's challenges when I work with older people. But it's really that openness and almost that how do you say it? That excitement for life, but at the same time, you're curious for more. Like you're fully grateful of what you have, you appreciate, but at the same time, you realize there's something more.
I like that. And we were just having a conversation. Like I wish I could see the world today through the eyes of our kids, right? Because everything is new. Everything is. If you're joining us, we're talking creating the culture of leaders, creating the culture of chiefs with Po'okela Mossman. We're going to get a little bit more into how he can motivate me. I'm getting greedy on this one. It's all about me. You guys can just listen in. But stay with us. This is Culturized, the culture of creating leaders right here on Culturized.
Culturized, brought to you by Beachside Roofing, the leaders. Elevate your home's exterior to a whole nother level with Windows Hawaii low maintenance, energy efficient select siding. Call 808-671-0808 today. Ridgel Kent Insurance, protecting your legacy.
Hey, thanks a lot for joining us. Welcome back to Culturized. We're talking about the culture of creating leaders. Po'okela Mossman, and that's what you do. You've created this company that. See, a lot of times people think, I'm going to create leaders. Initially, they're going to think, oh, you're going to work with kids and youth and teen. But you work with other CEOs of companies. You make them better. Tell us more about how you do that. Like, what do people see you for? So like me, I'm just like, I listen to your podcast and I look at all your posts. It motivates me, especially the one about falling down. But healthy mind I want to talk about because I always think I lose my mind. Right? What are things we can do to keep our mind right within this world today?
Okay, I'll answer the first because I really love that thought process. So, working with youth, working with adults, there's a lot of differences in it. Even with different levels of even roles. I think the thing is that a lot of times when you start to look at roles, chief executives, and sometimes we get so intimidated. I used to. And it's like, whoa, this person leads an organization. It's so gigantic. I really try to just get right back to. I really believe leadership is about working with people. And if I'm going to work with people, I got to be a person. I cannot be so much in my head. I cannot be so much in my intellect. I gotta be a person to connect with people. And when I look at that, it really kind of balances everything out. And every person has strengths. Every person has weaknesses. So we all need somebody to kind of help us with our blind spots in a sense. It's just that the blind spots aren't fun to talk about. It's like nobody wants to talk about that. So starting a conversation is usually a slower process, a slower sowing of the garden for me. But once it opens,
that's It's amazing. So if somebody's sitting here, they're watching. It's like, I want to be a leader. I want to become a better CEO. I want to become a better executive. What are the things? Are there initial things they have to have? Like you just said, you got to be a people person.
Right.
What are the things should they work on to get to that level, to just be a better leader?
I think I would say what we really camp on is, and I'm not trying to knock a system, but I think sometimes when we do something bad, what are we taught? To do more of it, right? You fail in this school year, what you taking for summer school? What you didn't fail at, so you're doing more of. So sometimes we carry that into life and we feel like I got to work more on what I'm not good at. But if you switch it and you say, what is my strengths? And I'm going to work more on that, because that's something that you're excited for naturally. You don't have to get motivated about. You love doing it and you're good at it. Now your blind spots, you learn to identify, and that's where you delegate. That's where you develop. That's where you connect with other people and you let them rise up in what they love to do, but you don't like to do.
That's how is that so simple, but yet so like you're talking. I was like, I know this, but I don't do it. Right. Focus on your strengths. Be a people person. That'll get you to a leadership role. Now, being a leader, a lot of times, mentally, it's difficult for people. And you and I know, dancing for so many years, right? We're almost getting kicked off stage. We're at that point, we're like, okay, you guys is almost power ready. But the importance of a healthy mind as a leader, how important is that?
So I realized this a little later in my leadership journey, in realizing that basically as a leader, even as you grow in stages as a leader, there's just bigger decisions you have to make. Leadership, if you think about it, if you just look at the home, parents make decisions that the keiki, not going to make. You're not going to give on keiki one certain decision. So the decision process takes up a lot of brain power. So I always looked at health, neck down. I don't know. I always looked at health as neck down.
I like that.
Like how with my diet, my activity was always neck down. I like dancing, I like moving a certain way, I like feel confident and strong. And I started to realize the foods I eat, the activity I take, the rest that I need, it really helps keep my mind healthy so I can make better decisions.
Neck down. I'm stealing that from you. So because everybody always divides, right? Physically, mentally, spiritually, but from neck down. And what kind of practices do you do? I want to get into that. But if you are joining us, this is Culturized on YouTube. Hit the subscribe. Do all those things to validate my existence. And let us know you're learning something at the comments down below. We're going to go over to the extended version. If you're watching this on TV, we're sitting with Po'okela Mossman. We are talking about leadership roles, how to create leaders, a culture of leaders, because I truly think we need it today. A lot of people act like leaders, but we need them to be leaders. It's right here on Culturized. Hey, what's going on? What's up? How's it? Aloha. Welcome to Culturized. It is me, Makani. This is the space that we get to create for you and for us. And for those that are just, I truly believe, to get along with everybody. I mean, we live in a crazy time. You just have to learn a little bit about their culture, and your empathy and your sympathy kicks in. I mean, we get along a lot better if we learned a little bit of culture about anybody and everybody. So that's the space we do it today. We are on the extended version on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank all of our sponsors. And we are talking about creating a culture of leadership. And sitting with Po'okela Mossman, and we want to kind of go back because, Castle High School, Kahaluu, country boy, right? Grew up in one of the most amazing ohana, the Mossmans, and as an entertainer, everything they did was your name, was Po'okela, was at a level that you had to uphold. And then you fast forward in life and you create your company and your podcast, Leader Seeds. I love that, Leader Seeds. Like you're planting seeds. And I thought, how brilliant is that? And just the fact that you're using what you grew up learning culturally into this modern contemporary world. I want to get into self-leadership. We talked a little bit off camera about you have a military background. Mm-hmm. Tell us again how your view of leadership was at the time. What was that like? It was in the military, because it's just somebody yelling at you. You do this, you do that.
Right.
What's the difference today?
Right. So on twofold, I think from one side it was seeing that a leader was just somebody that just tell somebody what to do and they do it. You know, and you almost see just the fruit of leadership, right? It's like what the result of leadership. But as I remember at graduation, I was more happy I graduated from a boot camp than from high school. I don't know, for some reason. It tests you. It tests you a lot. I wanted to quit a lot, but getting through that process, Paul, and then we get graduation, and we got a chance to sit with the drill sergeants, and we had some real conversation, you know? And it's really the connections they would make with people that allowed them to push. You see, sometimes people see just the harvest and they think I'm going to walk around, point finger, and people going, you know, it's the result. We model the result. We model the harvest. So leader sees, the heart of leader sees is, can we put more shine on the seed so people don't get the wrong example of leadership, because we're modeling the fruit. But what we have to do is the discipline, the seeds of what builds that type.
And so so can somebody with that, I like leaders because you're planting these things, you're focusing on the good things. Can somebody who's just, because we talk about you coach CEOs and you coach executives, you coach, is there somebody that's just wants to be a leader in and of themselves?
Right.
Is that possible?
Absolutely. So it's really outside of the role. So we see the role, we see leadership attached to the role so many times. I don't know where that made that connection. But I always encourage people, the hardest person to lead is the person in the mirror, is yourself.
Like we were just talking about.
That's the hardest person to lead.
I'm very one of those, and I don't know if it's an old school local thing, but do as I say, not as I do, right?
Right.
Do you find that difficult?
Very, very. Especially that actually held me back from fully stepping into this for many years, because I love the topic. I learned so much from it. It blessed my life. I feel like, I was able to be a better leader and know when I wasn't a good leader. And then, to step in and to have a company that's what we do, that's our mission. It once again holds this bar and standard, but it's like, we all get bad days. And when you get bad days, when I kind of lead the 4K key at home, you beat yourself up and you're like.
So it is okay, because exactly like you just said, leaders, sometimes there's just a day that we don't want to lead. And is that okay?
Absolutely. I think it's part of healthy leadership. Part of healthy leadership is understanding that you don't have to be on and perfect and have the right answer every time. One of my mentors, Craig Rochelle, always says people want a leader that's real and not always right. But in leaders, we always want to have the right answer. But the best leaders is just the real people. The real people, that just come and say, you know what, guys, today you're going to get nothing out of me.
I'm thinking of, because I think leaders, and you're just totally changing it, because now I'm going to start looking at leaders in different ways, because like you said, I just see them and I attach it to a role, but now I'm just going to look at them. Are they a leader in and of themselves? Are there things somebody can do? They just like meditation. A lot of people meditate. What other things can people do just to be a self-leader, to be better? What would you recommend?
So first, I would say knowing your strengths, because what I'm going to say is going to work for some and it's not going to work for other people. So when you know your strengths, some people like tasks, some people like a checkboard. You know what I mean? Notes. So kind of having a space to get what's in our head out of our head, whether that's journaling, whether that's conversation, talking with somebody, whether that's jokes. Comedy is a great way. It's surprising. I see some people that they're so serious. We take our adulthood so serious. It's like, hey, go have some lunch where you just bust laugh. You just bust laugh. You just crack up, and it kind of lightens some unnecessary stress in our life.
I like that about you, because every time I see your podcast, every time I see something that you post, you've got whiteboards everywhere, and you write everything down.
Right.
I'm trying to get into that. My whiteboard's like this small, right by my door. It says wallet, keys, phone. That's right. That's all I got so far. So when you're motivating people, what's the podcast they can go to? So Leader Seeds. You're on YouTube. What other platforms are you on? We distribute to all. I think it's to Amazon Music now. Nice. To Spotify, to Apple, and then they have a bunch of like Google Cast and everything else too. I want to kind of wrap this up with, we talked about, creating a culture of leaders, and this is kind of more for me too, but we talked goals, we talked dreams, we keeping ourselves in that leadership mindset. I don't want to. I don't think it's ending on a bad note, but we all fall down, right?
Right.
Like you said, we wanted to do things.
Right.
Nah, like.
Yeah.
What do you say to people that like this? They want to learn culture. They want to do something. They want to learn to dance. What do you say to those people that are just 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Oh, I don't know.
Right.
Because they keep falling down.
Good question. And before I jump into them, I want to thank you for even inviting me to here because ever since the invite, I got to be honest, ever since the invite, it really had me intentionally dive into culture, of my experience with culture, but even trying to step aside and see how does other people experience culture in different ways, you know? So I learned so much from the invite. Just the journey from the invite to here today really helped me grow a lot. So that was awesome.
Well, of course, because, you know, we're on the stage together
Right.
in our entertainer life.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, what else those guys do?
Right.
And I think it's our time to share. And I think you're the perfect person to share that, because a lot of what you share, I take to heart and I write down in my notebook. So when we continue to want to do something, and is it falling down if we just, how long do you fall down for? And
Right. So falling down is such a big topic. What comes to mind right now, there's so much I can really expand on it, but what comes to mind is, what would you tell your best friend that fell down, that would call you and said they had on a bad day? You know, and it's another thing that seems so simple, but I think sometimes we push against things that are familiar because we heard it before, but we got to ask ourselves, am I doing what I know? Am I doing what I heard before? So if we hear a tip or advice that we heard before, we push it back. But I always encourage people, don't push it so much. Try lean into it and try to say, what would I tell my keiki when they come home and they say, Dad, I want to try out, but I never make them. You know, we are our worst critic in so many ways. We are our hardest coach in so many ways. And sometimes that's the release by having a coach in your corner, is you get to release that unnecessary pressure we put on ourselves. Because when I work with people, I'll see them beat themselves up. And sometimes I got to wait. You wanted to get 5 points done. You got 3. That's a pretty good average, you know? Okay,
Yeah,
it's not. I'm not going to sugarcoat
Yeah.
this, but at the same, let's not be so hard on ourselves. But if you never get anything done, how come?
Yeah.
What happened?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's where it comes in the self-leadership aspect, is strengths and weaknesses. I write things down because I'm trying to take them out of my. I'm surprised sometimes when I read my own journals. I'm like, whoa, that's in my head.
See,
I don't realize what I have to heal from or work on.
you journal every day?
When I try to. So what's been working lately is this thing called a one-line journal. And all I do is I write one line for the day.
Whoa.
So it's based on atomic habits. It's just atomic habit. Sorry, It's just a small habit, but because sometimes writing the long one, I feel pressured. I got to write one full page.
I'm gonna try that.
I just do one line.
I'm gonna try that. I want to leave. Resilience is built in the tough waters of life. The waves will always teach you more than you ever find on the shore. Amazing. If you want to figure out what that was, your podcast, Leader Seeds, website?
So leaderseedspodcast.com.
Okay, so go do that. If you just need to take your life to the next level, if you're an executive, Paul Mossman is the man. Mahalo, brother, for joining us.
Oh, this is such a blessing.
We will see each other. We got, what do we have? A Mauhinui reunion coming up. So that's me and you on the stage coming up right here on Culturized. Mahalo.